I'll move right along. I'm going to try to push this as quick as I can. The next graft that we're going to cover is going to end up being the modified bark. The modified bark, just like the cleft graft, is a fairly easy graft. Cliff England was supposed to be here to demonstrate this graft, but unfortunately he wasn't able to come. As you look at the picture, and it's also inside the pamphlet that you guys have in there in your possession. Excuse me. The graft itself is an easy graft. You might think it's not that easy, but it actually is an easy graft, and it's a very friendly graft. And the more you start to utilize this graft, the more you learn to appreciate that graft as far as utilizing it. And just forgive me. Something else I've learned by watching with Cliff, I have snips here. It's a double snip. It's not like these other ones that a lot of people use. Like we have a pruner right here, one side edge, and I have one right here that I kind of call an anvil. It's right down the middle. You'll see a little V in there, cut straight across, and that's. But I find, in my personal opinion, that matches one side of the stick. I don't want that. And according to what we handed out, it was going to be Overlease and Maria's Joy that we're going to be using. But you know, I had so much scion wood, I figured I'm going to do a little bit of a mixture. Okay. Mark just got done doing Rigel, and me myself, I'm going to look into this stick right here. And one thing I like to look for is bud. I hate looking for bud. I like, you know, as far as I hate looking at it and saying, where's the bud at? I don't see no bud. And sometimes you won't. You just see a little nose. But there it is, a bud in there. It's hidden. It's a hidden bud. So we'll wrap this back up. Stick it back in the bag. Somebody remind me. Good old Sidewinder. Now I'm looking at the tree because I see buds on the side. I'm trying to find one that's clean. And I ain't got to look. There it is. This is a little bit different pot setup. And normally what I'll do when I'm dealing with those type pots right there, and I grabbed that on purpose because I want you guys to see a mixture of how everything is done. The pot that he worked with, I really enjoy them because they stand up on their own. These pots right here, they give you that extra long taproot. And if you look inside your brochure as far as planting your trees outside of these pots, there's a good illustration in there when you take the time to look at it. Now, with this graft right here, I got a little bit of bud on each side right here that wants to come out, so I'm going to do my cuts here. As you see right there in the illustration, and once again, just like Mark, I'm going to try to match up as best I can, and it's just too far for me to. Because where I snipped it at, I want that's the end. I didn't want the very bottom, as Steve pointed out, leaving that stick together. I want that centerpiece. That's the reason why I cut it. I want that centerpiece. I don't want this piece, and I don't want this piece. I want that centerpiece. And that's the reason why I chose to cut it. Now, we got really good green. Oh man, that's a healthy tree, damn. What you putting on that?
The one you don't want.
Okay. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my good old grafting knife. Now this one right here is a little bit different than what you have. You see this back here? I use this, and I'll show you how I use it. Okay. Now, me myself, I want to cut this before I cut this, and there's a reason for that. So all I'm going to do, and I got Teflon tape right here because I have a little problem. I get to pinching. and I just barely nicked there and I chapped myself. So all I'm going to do is, and I cut towards myself.
Be careful.
And don't startle me like that. But I'm going to cut a whip on one side. All right, I'm going to whip it. Whip it good. All right, I got a whip right there, as you can see right there. And then I'm going to come to the front side, and this time, okay, Mark, I'm going away from you. I'm going to chip it. Just a little bit. And sometimes, just for giggles, I'll come up here. I try not to touch where I cut. I'll come up here and I'll just barely shave the bark, the outer bark. I just barely shave it because I know I'm picking up some cambium by doing that. I want to expose that. It's been exposed. And I'm going to set it to the side, which, by the way, my tools are already sterilized. I just got done sterilizing my hand. And then, oops, I'm still going to use this. And then what I'm going to do is, I'm going to look the tree over. I have some bud here, some bud here. It's on one side of the tree. It's not all the way around. That's not the way pawpaw grows. It pushes from one side, each side of the tree, opposite from one another. And I don't want to go this way and cut, because then I'd be peeling the bark down across where bud is, and this allows to separate the bark from the wood. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my knife, I'm going to go off one side, just like that, slice it up, and then I'm going to take the other side of the knife, and I'm going to go straight across from it. Push it in just a hair, bring it up. Now once I brought it up, I'm going to turn my knife around, or I could turn around and use what you guys are going to have on your back side right here, and I'm going to go around. That's got good bark slip. Bark slip is sap flow. That's what you're after when you're grafting. You want that sap flow. So that popped loose. Now that it popped loose, I'm going to take this in, or I could use what I just got done doing, and then I'm going to pinch it. Mind you, I'm not touching the inside there. I'm not touching the inside of that bark. And I'm going to peel it down. Just like that. Get back down there.
Very green.
Yes, it is. That's very healthy. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my knife. Mind you, I'm going to do another whip. But I'm going to come inside underneath where I pulled that bark down, and I'm going to do that whip right here. And I want it to come up, and we got the whip. Now I'm going to grab a rubber band like what you guys have in your bag. I have other rubber bands that I normally use on this, and which I can show you. I have wider rubber bands, and the wider, I wonder what happened to that. The wider rubber bands is what I use for spread. I want an even spread on there. But I can get by with utilizing this. And this is where I'm going to take my scion and I'm going to stick it. Line the two whips up, and I'm going to pinch it just like that. They're stuck together. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my rubber band. This is a graft that can be tricky, but man, I tell you, like I said, once you learn how to use it, or once you start using it, you learn to appreciate it, because it's, well, don't make no liar out of me. What's happening is that bark's trying to pull with the rubber band, and I'm trying to keep it from pulling. So straighten it all back out, and then I'm going to turn around and I'm going to start my wraps. Now, this is where you want this wrap. I pull on the rubber band, one wrap, two wraps, I'm overlapping it, all right? And I'm going to go down as far as I can. I'm squeezing the bark to the scion at the same time, and I'm going to work my way back up. Got a little knot there I'm not happy about, but Open that out of the way here. See, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to keep that as flat as long as I can. So I don't want air pockets in that bark. I want that bark pushed flat against there, because your tree will actually create air pockets, and it could end up being the death of your tree. Now here's another way that I tie off, is I just put my finger up underneath there and roll it up over. Same concept as what I showed you with the pencil. That was just a little trick I wanted to share with you that somebody else uses. And I have different parafilms, that buddy tape. This buddy tape right here, which we'll have some of it available for you to use, it's perforated. All I gotta do, snap it, it's a little 2-inch piece that comes off there, okay? Whereas, and I just wanted to show it to you, this one right here, it is not perforated. And whenever you go to pull this off, and it's much thinner than what Mark is using, whenever you go to pull this off, the best way to do it, instead of trying to just pull it off, give it a snatch, because it'll try to stretch out on it. Another thing about buddy tape, in which normally the type graft that Mark just did, I like putting the parafilm on first. And the reason being is I got subconsciously in my mind, I'm thinking to myself, that thing is rocking all over the place, and I don't like that. I wanted to get in there and stay put. So a lot of times I'll put parafilm on the scion before I start wrapping. And I don't pull this out and stretch it while I'm before I start working, because it's so easy to stretch. I just go ahead and stretch it as I'm wrapping, a little bit at a time. And like Mark said, one layer over that bud. You want that bud to be able to push. And another thing you want to think about is where you cut your bark, I want to take that parafilm all the way down. I want to seal that little slit. I still have the slit exposed. I want that slit sealed. The parafilm will actually pull it in place. And down here in the bottom, I'll give it a couple reps just to make sure that it's slowly pulling that bark to it. This is a good graft to use. Whenever Cliff uses this graft, he always uses a 2x or a different parafilm. It's a laboratory. Stretches it this way, lays it on there, and he wraps it up. I've done the same thing. I even done it with this. And put it on the wrong stick, Dan.
No, I didn't. That's the one we want to remember.
Once again, always mark your grafts. Any questions?
Yeah. The orientation of the scion, can you put it either way, or does it have to go with the buds pointing up?
You want the buds pointing up, otherwise it'll try to grow and curl upwards and it may not grow. According to Cliff, you can take that scion and stick it in there sideways and it'll grow. Now I wouldn't do that. What sense does that make? And another thing Cliff will do is he'll cut and only have one bud. He'll do his graft, and he'll get it up there, and then he'll take his snip, he'll snip, and he'll only have one bud. And what you end up having is I call it knock knee, dog knee. That bud will push and it'll go out that way. And what you'll have is you'll have a tree that's growing up, and then all of a sudden it wants to go that way. Which, I mean, you can correct it, but it's got that knock on there, and I don't like that. I mean, if I wanted a tree to look like that, I'd be chip budding, and I don't chip bud. I'm not crazy about it. There's some grafts are better than other grafts, but for me, these type grafts that we're doing, in my mind, they make sense. Chip bud, for me personally, for pawpaws that don't know about other fruits, it don't make sense. And I tell you something right now, and I've done this. You'll have a bud that you'll graft a bud, and then all of a sudden it dies. It doesn't push. It's over with. All right. And then down below you'll have a growth come out, and you decide, well, I'm going to leave that alone, let that grow out. Well, I did that with 2 of them just to see what would happen, and I did it to one in my yard purposely to see what would happen. I'm going to look at it this weekend. And it'll start to grow out, and you think to yourself, well, I'll just go ahead and regraft into it, and then below that growth, I'll snip. And I did that to 2 trees, and I looked down in there and I said, I ain't wasting no scion on that, because it dries it out. That's why you keep this right here covered. You want to keep this covered, because you're going to get dry out. It's going to die out. And that's part of the reason why your grafted trees don't live as long as a seedling. You know, grafted trees don't live as long, but they can live long. And it all stems back to the care of the tree, with Galen coming up here talking about the kelp and stuff like that. Care of the trees will give you a big, big difference. Any other questions?
Can you wrap the parafilm around the graft first and then the rubber band around it?
Yes. The graft that Mark just did, I'll do exactly that. I'll get the parafilm on there, and I'll stick it in there, and I'll finish the wrap. Whip and tongue, I do the same thing. All other grafts I do the same thing, but I have a hard time doing that with this particular style of graft for some odd reason. Anybody else?
Do you ever put Elmer's glue on the top of the wood instead of wrapping the parafilm around it?
No,
Did you put glue on to keep it?
because I want to keep all this from drying out. Because if you look at a pawpaw's bud, and which you'll have an opportunity, you'll look right there where the leaf bud is, and it's shaped like a half moon, and you see a whole bunch of little holes in there. That's escape for moisture. And that's the reason why I wrap that entire thing up. And incidentally, there's another bud in there. Flower buds will be on these, and you'll, as time goes on, you'll know what a flower bud is. Knock it off, do your graft, and there'll be a new bud come out. Anybody else? Thank you very much.